Matt, Karen, Matt, pleasure to be speaking with you both. The two-parter goes to you, Matt. How are you? And how does it feel to be answering the same questions over and over and over and over again today?
I'm great, and I'm happy to answer the same question over and over again because I think this film and having the light shone on this community at a festival like Tribeca is like incredible. So it's a great day.
Okay, now, Karen, different sort of question for you. So,
Yes.
inside baseball here, when I watched the advanced version of this film, it said uploaded 1 year ago. And
Mhm.
Tribeca is a bit of a process to get accepted into that. So, for you, what's the timeline on this film?
Well, we've been working with EBRP for more than 5 years.
Yeah.
And so I feel like when we met Eli, who's featured in the film, more than 5 years ago, I think anytime you meet a young person who is living with EB,
Hmm.
uh, you understand kind of immediately the pain that they're dealing with, and that really it is a matter of time before we find a cure,
Right.
and hopefully a matter of time before we can end kind of their suffering. And so I think that from that very first kind of instance of meeting Eli, I think we started thinking about, well, how can we do more to shine a light on
Mm.
on the EB or EB community? And so the idea for our film, I think, has always been percolating in the back of our mind. And when the idea for this summit in Seattle happened, with the extraordinary backdrop of Ed's two solo shows, when that presented as an opportunity, it just seemed like the right time.
Yeah, and just to like add to that, I think the timeline it is interesting because it's all this time ago. Like Eli's 13 now,
Mhm.
and as you see in the film, he starts when he's like 7 years old, and I think the interested like when you meet someone with EB, like Karen said, it's it's this rare disease that basically people haven't heard of, but it's also this rare community, which I think was the draw, and that having the film in the back of our minds, maybe unplanned for so many years, just to see is like, how do we tell this story? Obviously, to raise awareness, up and raise funds to cure this. But I think it's such a unique story to show people like what a small community that moves mountains to actually tangibly cure this. It's not like, hey, let's cure cancer and
Mhm.
we'll hope to do it in 30 years. It's like, no, there's actually like an end game that we can see. So that was the
Which is such a rare privilege,
yeah.
because I don't think it's often that you can see that end game with other diseases,
Right.
or, other things that people choose to support. We really see where this final step can take us, which is a cure.
Yeah.
So different sort of direction for the question that I'm going to ask, Matt. So
Mhm.
there was 2 nights of Ed's performance.
Yep.
There's the science aspect where thankfully you make science understandable to somebody like me who failed science over and over and over again. There's the human interest family story.
Yeah.
How long was the original cut combining all that
Yeah.
versus what we see here at the Tribeca film?
That's a great question. I think we started, look, I think everyone, like Karen and I, the families, the scientists, Ed and Jill, it's always been, we have this responsibility to hope. And it's always, someone had asked me, like, how hard was it balancing everything that you just mentioned to
Yeah.
make this into a film? And it wasn't hard because I think it's always had with the goal of having these family stories up front and presenting it like this is their truth. Ed's amazing. And I think the fact that Ed and Jill, they don't just like fundraise and then say, oh, we did a good job and did our thing. They like lead with purpose. So it was very easy to like weave these stories in and weave Ed's music in into something that I hope people walk away with and say, they learn something from this disease and these people's lives.
Right.
Um, and pull the songs together to answer your question about choosing the music after over 2 nights. It was easy because Ed just like organically tied everything into the stories we were telling.
Mhm.
We didn't know that these are the stories were going to come together, but it was very easy to pull together like you know, the stories we're telling about families and scientists with the songs that Ed was performing.
But the original cut was quite a bit longer, and truth be told, we could do a documentary on each of these stories, each of these families. You know, what they experience in their day-to-day lives is something that will never cease to amaze me, and the balance that they find, you know, is just extraordinary. So yeah, we could have made a whole series out of these family stories.
Yeah.
And everything that we've said doesn't mention the fact that Broken Social Scene contributed original music to this. I had Charles on my show a couple of weeks ago, and Broken Social Scene themselves had that Tribeca screening of their documentary last year. How did they get involved in this project?
So being Canadians and from Toronto, I grew up loving Social Scene. And during the pandemic, we were trying to help EB Research Partnership. You know, you couldn't do galas or fundraising, no public events.
Yeah.
And so we started these shows, which were like virtual fundraisers called Venture into Cures. And, you know, we would go to artists and asked if we could get performances from them. And I reached out to Kevin Drew and I said, hey, we're doing this thing. And he's sort of like, sorry, you have like Will Ferrell and Selena Gomez and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Eddie's like, why do you want us? And I was like, because I love you guys. And, you know, Kevin and the whole band, like they lead with their heart. They deep feelers. Their music has always been very cinematic to me as well. And so when I reached out to Kev, he's like, yeah, how can we help? And that's the case with everything in this community. And I like also as like a fan of Social Scene, like they just like gave their time, they gave their talent. And I think Kevin and the band like did a beautiful job of like providing this like really nice emotional frequency to the film, and it's not heavy-handed. It fits perfectly well, I think, with Ed's performances. That honestly, I'd love to hear more of it.
The last question I have for both of you, because you've been kind with your time right here, is are we allowed to know what project is coming next from both of you or either of you, or is it matter of time is the swan song and career is over?
I mean, if it was, then that would be okay. You know, honestly, it's been the privilege, I think, of our lives to like tell this story with this community. You know, and so I mean, as far as what's next, you know, hopefully more like music things, but I think what Karen and I really like pride ourselves on is if we can tell stories that have an actual impact. So let's hope for another one of these, because I feel like I hope people walk away, whether it's EBE or it's something else that they care about, that they will walk away feeling like, oh, there is hope in this like undivided, you know, this divided world, you know, to try like make a difference, you know. That's it.
Content with purpose and hope, something that will hopefully move the needle and causes that we care about the most and that we have the privilege to get behind as storytellers.
Yeah.
Paltrocast.